Relentless. That's what we need from our Democrats. And a sterling example is Congressman Robert Garcia. You know, the work that he's doing on House Oversight has been amazing so far. And he continues to pound the drum when it comes to transparency for the American people. One critical thing that he is focusing on and remains laser focused upon are the Epstein Files. And just today, we know that House Oversight has sent a subpoena and served a subpoena on the estate of the late Jeffrey Epstein to be able to obtain the birthday book. You know, the one that triggered convicted felon Donald Trump so badly in that Wall Street Journal article with the doodle. So Congressman Garcia has not only been making sure that we do not get snowed or distracted by the head fake cover up that the Trump administration is trying to, perpetrate on us, but Congressman Garcia is also supporting the redistricting plan that California Governor Gavin Newsom has introduced, even though it actually impacts Congressman Garcia's district, 42nd District in California. So we had the chance to catch up with him while he was in transit on the move. He was kind enough to give us the time to be able to get us caught up on all things Epstein, as well as the redistricting Proposition 50 in California. So take a listen. And joining me is Congressman Robert Garcia. Congressman Garcia, you are a man on the move, so I am grateful for the privilege of your time. And I understand that you're joining us from an airport. So we got it. Don't worry. Let's just dive into it because we wanted to get the latest look. We all saw the drip, drip, drip of information that's coming from the DOJ vis-a-vis the House Oversight subpoena that was served lawfully, duly. It's got all the teeth. But what's the holdup here? Because Donald Trump is the gatekeeper for this. If he said, let it all rip, it could all be let out.
Absolutely. And let's also be really clear. This is just a bigger part of this massive cover-up. There's no question. The Attorney General said herself that the files were sitting on her desk. And so what's really happened is, as you know, we forced this vote during the last day of session before Mike Johnson canceled session to get everybody out of session so that people would stop talking about the Epstein files. We forced that vote. We got a couple Republicans to join. We got the subpoena in place. James Comer was forced to put that subpoena basically out, to the community, to the country. And now they are trying to essentially slow drip and slow walk the process. And so what's happening right now at this moment is we received about 33,000 pages in that first batch. Of those 33,000 pages, about 97% were already publicly released information. And so that's not acceptable. Only about 1,000 pages were some flight logs that we've gone through, nothing significant that we've seen so far. But they have right now the power and the authority and the legal requirement to release all the files unredacted. They've not done so yet. They have said we're going to get all of it, but we're still waiting.
Yeah, and today we saw that the House Oversight approved a subpoena to go out to the estate of Jeffrey Epstein, kind of pulling on a thread that's a little bit singular in terms of the pursuit. It deals with that birthday book, the drawing that has been the subject of that Wall Street Journal article, which convicted felon Donald Trump swears up and down he doesn't doodle, even though we've now seen several examples of him doodling on things. I will say I do have the subpoena, Congressman, and it is actually kind of interesting. So its return date is September 8th, meaning the documents must be provided by the estate of Jeffrey Epstein by the 8th. But talk a little bit about why you guys also included here things like the last will and testament of Epstein and NDAs, which I think is actually very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think what happened here, since the initial first set of subpoenas that Republicans put together, we had been asking for a much broader set of subpoenas. We wanted the birthday book, we wanted Alex Acosta, and Republicans had refused. But over the last couple of weeks, we have kept that pressure on. And every single day, we've been pounding the pavement, and we've been talking to their committee members saying, look, you guys can't say you want transparency if you're not willing to subpoena more folks and get more information. So folks like Congressman Ro Khanna and others have been leading the way around getting this birthday book and other documents. We told essentially Comer and the Republicans that if they chose not to subpoena or bring in Alex Acosta or the book themselves, that on that first day and first week back into Congress, we were going to try every single thing that we could as it relates to forcing votes in committees on the floor to get these documents. They don't want to be embarrassed anymore. And so I think in many ways, James Comer kind of agreed to our demands. He's now issued the subpoena on the birthday book, which we've been asking for weeks. He has now also agreed to bring Alex Acosta in for questioning, which is a critical piece of all of this. And so that pressure that not just us, but the country has been putting on the majority and Comer and the party has been really, really important. As it relates to the book, we want to get as much information as possible. This note that Donald Trump drew and made a doodle for Epstein, who, by the way, we know, according to Epstein, he said Donald Trump was his best friend. Let's be very clear. His closest friend for 10 to 15 years. And then to say that you somehow don't know this person or didn't write this note, we're going to prove that obviously to be a huge lie. And so it's important that we get this document information.
Well, and I was also pleased, and you've mentioned it, that Alex Acosta, so a little bit of some context for everybody, Alex Acosta was the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida when that sweetheart plea deal that Epstein got in Florida in the mid-2000s was obtained. He's the one who actually had to authorize that. I was stunned to not see his name, and I've been actually hitting the drumbeat of where is Alex Acosta to be able to have to answer questions. So I'm thrilled to see that you and the other Democrats and frankly, you're right. Americans have been demanding accountability on this, and that Alex Acosta is going to have to answer questions. However, Congressman, it is going to be a behind doors, similar to what we've seen Bill Barr, for example, have to do.
That's right. But we will be there, unlike what's happened with Ghislaine Maxwell, where you have Donald Trump's personal lawyer basically asking questions and managing. At least Democrats will be in the room. And so we'll be able to ask questions, and we have a bunch. And as it relates to Alex Acosta, I think what really moved James Comer was we got a Republican on the committee to publicly come out and say that she wanted to subpoena Alex Acosta or hear from Alex Acosta. And there were already others that were saying the same thing to him privately. And so I think what's happening is the pressure that we are putting on Comer and Republicans publicly, privately, in the media, the American public is making an impact. And we're going to continue to push every day until we get the full files, unredacted, and we can have some justice for these victims.
You know, just a quick follow-up concerning Ghislaine Maxwell. The farce of the release of that transcript and the audio last week was particularly insulting to the intelligence of the American people, I believe. I know that House Oversight was able to delay, but I know that you guys weren't seeking the delay per se, as in you and the Dems, but Ghislaine Maxwell isn't having to testify before House Oversight until after the disposition of her petition to the Supreme Court to take up her appeal. And yet, I'm not quite sure how she's able to reconcile that delay now, seeing how the, quote, entirety of her immunized testimony has now been made public. The audio has now been made public. So wouldn't you think, Congressman, that Ghislaine Maxwell should want to run to hang out with you at House Oversight to tell her side of the story, seeing how she allegedly has already done it?
Absolutely. And this whole thing has just been completely ridiculous. Just part of them essentially trying to create a narrative or a story, right? I mean, we know first, let's be clear, Ghislaine Maxwell is a liar, is a sex trafficker, should not be trusted, has done monstrous things, has been involved herself in horrific acts of violence against young women and girls. And by the way, this has all been, as we know, it's gone through the court system, gone through the judicial system. There are witnesses here. So she is guilty of the horrific crimes that she has done. Now, for her to get this kind of buy from House Republicans to somehow not have her come in front of us, again, what are they hiding? Because, look, it's one thing to have Ghislaine Maxwell interviewed by Todd Blanche and the DOJ. It's another to have a bipartisan group of members of Congress and lawyers and others in the room actually asking her the questions that the American public want to be asked, right? And so I think that's going to be very important. We're looking forward to that. She should be in front of us immediately. She was supposed to be in front of us weeks ago. And so this continues to stall. But all of this is, I think, just part of this massive White House cover-up that's clearly happening. They are trying to hide something. We're going to continue to stay on this. The American public wants us to stay on this. And I hope that nobody buys into this idea that somehow Ghislaine Maxwell is a good person or wants to, or what she's somehow saying is just automatically true. Anything she says should be corroborated with information in the files or that others have said as well. We just can't take her word for it.
I agree. And let's shift gears because, again, I know that I only have a little bit of time with you, but I do want to talk to you about the California redistricting plan. It's now Proposition 50, Prop 50, that's going to go before the voters. You represent the 42nd district in California. With this new map that has been approved but will go before the voters, right? At this point, the number of voters that identify as Republican congressmen for your district will go from 18% to 30%. So you obviously have a vested interest in the outcome of what happens here. Talk to the viewers here that are listening and watching why it's still so important for these redistricting maps to be able to be a part of the California voters to decide upon, and how it really isn't an apples to apples comparison to what they're doing in Texas.
Absolutely. I mean, first, look, when the plan came forward, I've had one of the bluest seats in California, really safe Democratic seat. And they asked, look, are folks willing to kind of step up and know that our district's going to change? And of course, absolutely. I'm in fact going to gain more Republican voters into my district than almost any district in California of the big changes.
Wow.
Because my seat was so blue. Now, look, the seat is still a solid Democratic seat. I'm grateful for that. But the reason why it's important for us to step forward is because democracy is at stake. What Donald Trump is doing in Texas is essentially trying to rig the 2026 elections, and it's going to be Texas, it's going to be Florida, it's going to be Missouri, it's going to be Indiana. And so California has to respond. And so us in California have to accept, hey, we're going to have districts that will be a little less blue, and that's okay, because we can still win on ideas, and we can still win on ensuring that we are promoting lowering costs and healthcare and things that people care about here back home. And the difference between the two states is clear. Texas is essentially a gerrymander driven by a phone call from Donald Trump to Governor Abbott that said, find me more congressional seats, redraw the maps. That is what's driving the Texas map. The California map is in response. The Governor Newsom has said and been very clear, we're only doing this because Texas is doing it. We like our commission. We think all 50 states should have commissions, but we're not going to just sit back and allow this fight to happen across the country and us essentially tie one hand behind our back, right? And so we are doing the right thing in response.
Yeah, and I know that you guys are going back into session next week to talk about what the priorities are, because I think the emphasis has always been the ability for Democrats to embrace walking and chewing gum, making everything a top priority, and making sure that you guys are keeping the pressure on when it comes to the Epstein Files, and making sure that this redistricting, messaging is still strong, and all the other things are a priority. But what are you specifically going to be letting us know that you're going to be prioritizing when you're back?
Look, I mean, for the Oversight Committee and the caucus, obviously, we're all doing, we've got various different priorities, but let me start first for the committee. Yeah. On the committee side, we're focused like a laser on Donald Trump's corruption. The Epstein Files, what's happening right now, the scandal at DHS around contracts and around who's actually making money over there, Secretary Noem's relationships, that is going to be something that we're already focused on, very, very critical for our work. We're also really focused right now on the essential destruction of FEMA, which is happening right now in front of us. FEMA is being gutted. That's a huge priority of the Oversight Committee. And so those issues, along with essentially the White House basically being a opportunity for the Trump family to make unlimited, untold amounts of money, are top of the list for us. Broadly speaking, as it relates to the caucus and the party, the issue of corruption, along with issues around lowering the costs for American families and ensuring that we are fighting for healthcare, unlike Republicans who are trying to take healthcare away, I think you're going to see those themes begin to dominate the fall and going into next year. It's going to be lowering costs for families. It's going to be expanding healthcare for Americans, and it's going to be taking on government and Donald Trump's corruption. I think those are things you're going to see a lot from us as Democrats.
Well, listen, I am thrilled that you continue to lead the way that you do. I am grateful always for the fight. I think that we continue to have to meet the urgency of the moment with the urgency of the message. And part of that is being able to have people like you take the time out of your incredibly busy schedules to talk to me and to let our viewers know and Americans know that even though it may be recess, it's not really. The work is 24/7 for people like you. So Congressman Robert Garcia, thank you again for joining us on The Move.
And Katie, I'll always talk to you. Katie, I'll always talk to you. You're one of the best in the business over here, so of course.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and safe travels, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Katie Phang here. We launched the Katie Phang News Channel in partnership with the Midas Touch Network so we could bring you the latest in legal and political news. Straight, no chaser. So if you're a fellow truth teller, hit that subscribe button and share the word about this channel so we can build a high information America together.